So I'm excited to introduce our panel on the latest use cases that are closest to production. Our moderator today will be Subankar Shina from PwC, and then you'll hear from Daniela Barbosa from Hyperledger, John West from Thomson Reuters, Jeremy Miller from Consensus and the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, and Henry Aguda from Unionbank. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Henry?
Hi, I think it's working. I'm Henry. I'm from the Philippines, not from here. I work for Unionbank. It's a bank in the Philippines, one of the biggest universal banks there. We own several other commercial and rural banks. I joined Unionbank about a year and a half, but I mentioned that because I'm not really a banker, so they got the most unqualified person to run the bank, basically. I'm a recovering telco executive, so they got me from the telco. So the use case that we came up with, like most people aspiring to use blockchain, we want to use blockchain to make a social impact and think, where can we use the greatest, the latest technology and have the most social impact? So we thought of putting the rural banks in the Philippines on a blockchain. That is Project I2I. It's on Ethereum, and we've partnered with Consensus. We're actually one of the first use cases on the Collide platform. So the use case aims to provide and modernize the way rural banks settle among each other. So imagine, in my country, we have 7,100 islands. I2I stands for island to island, also stands for individual to individual, institution to institution. They're all disconnected. So the rural banks were created to address the unbanked and the underbanked in their area of geography, but they themselves are underbanked. Imagine we have around 3,500 rural banks a few years back. They're going into extinction, actually. There's only about 500 of them because they cannot keep up with the cost of being inefficient, largely because they have no access to the national settlement system, and they don't have access to the international settlement system. So I2I is created and will be in production next week, a blockchain where rural banks can now do transaction among each other as a start. As it grows and as we partner with Consensus, hopefully we grow it into a rural bank in a box where they can now suddenly use blockchain to provide other banking services. We're not launching an ICO, but who knows? That's not without finality. But what we're trying to do is we're creating tokens that are pegged to our peso that the rural banks can flawlessly transact with one another.
Thanks, Henry. Daniela?
Great. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Henry, you talked about the use case you guys are working on. Could you tell us a little bit about what strategy you guys followed to arrive at that use case and what other use case? You must have evaluated other use cases. So can you talk to the strategy?
So we followed the don't rip and tear. So we didn't reinvent the CASA system on blockchain because CASAs are working. We didn't reinvent a document management system on blockchain. So we thought of identifying a unique social problem where we could apply blockchain. And the economics just works when you talk about blockchain infrastructure, especially when you have blockchain on the cloud. So as I mentioned earlier, from 3,500 rural banks, they've dwindled down to about 500. And the reason for that is the amount of capex that they have to spend on technology. And from a prohibitive cost of being on a national settlement network, it has gone down to zero cost at all. Of course, Unionbank has subsidized the creation of the blockchain. Now, Unionbank wouldn't subsidize that if the costs were that of a traditional infrastructure. But consider this. If you go blockchain on the cloud, you don't need a data center. You don't need high-value security products. The protocol is the message, the execution, the settlement, and the accounting. No heavy oversight organization needed to watch the proper settlement. And it was designed for untrusting organization being in a trust environment. So the protocol really works. And that's the reason why we chose that use case of I2I to have the maximum impact possible in our country. And from there, hopefully, we bring it to several other executions like KYC. I mean, these use cases of settlement, KYC, they're normal. Other chains have done it. But the epiphany for us was, now there's blockchain on the cloud. You can spin it up very fast. We did this last October when we identified the use case, Engage Consensus as our partner, and now we're launching in production by next week. So it's fast and it's cheap.
So you came from telco, right?
Yeah, like old-fashioned telco, we didn't have a business case, by the way. We didn't have an ROI. We just said, let's build it and let's see how the technology takes us to new grounds.
Exactly. So you're used to building infrastructure and then, quote unquote, getting rent from it over 20 years. Something like that. So are you building something similar at Unionbank?
Okay, so what are we building? What's in it for Unionbank?
Yes.
So we in Unionbank, we have this community mantra. You help the community helps you back. So this one, if the network grows and the rural banks devote more of the money from wasteful endeavors to extending it to social needs like lower loan rates, lower remittance costs. So the Philippines has a very large overseas worker population, and from $2 of remittance costs, it will go down to a few cents. So the economics, hopefully, works in our favor, where if we did good in our community, we benefit from the good that we do.
Thank you. I think now I can open it for any audience question. We have 3 minutes.
Question for Henry here. So are you telling me that effectively, starting next week, Philippines would have 2 settlement systems?
We have several settlement systems actually in the Philippines, but by next week, when I2I is booted up in production, we'll have a chain that settles between rural banks. Now, we only have 6 rural banks signed up for now, so we're announcing it in the Rural Banks Association of the Philippines on Wednesday next week, and hopefully, once we've announced it, a lot more will be signing on board.
So I see. So do I have to have a special bank account to be able to work with that chain?
Yes, yes.
I
yes.
see. So I cannot just have like traditional account and be able to settle.
No, you can. What you do is you become a client of ours. Our rural bank puts in money, and the money translated into tokens, and it's the tokens that we use to move funds around. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Today, and thank you so much for attending.